Next tab is record, warp and launch. This tab is very important for every music producer. Although we'll be having a brief discussion over this topic in our upcoming sessions, I will quickly guide to set up your preferences for recording or exporting audio. Under the record section here, the first thing is file type. There are two different types of files. One is WAV, the other one is AIFF. Waves is a Windows file, AIFF is Apple audio file. You can select either one of this according to your preferences. I'm going to select AIFF as my preferred audio type as I'm working on a Mac OS or Apple computer. Okay, so the next thing that we have here is bit depth. Ableton recommends you to have 24 bit depth for the output audio, and I'm going to leave it just the way it is. The next thing is count in. 2 bars is selected over here. Every time recording is armed on a track, it will wait for 2 bars to start the recording process. As you can see here, that means you'll have a buffer time of 2 bars. I have set this to 2 bars and you can select either one of this according to your preferences. Let's go back to the preferences. The next thing we have is exclusive, arm and solo. When this feature or switch is active or enabled, you can arm or solo multiple tracks by pressing Command key on the keyboard. As you can see here, I can solo multiple tracks. Let's go back to preferences. Clips update rate. It is set to 1/16. It's nothing but the refresh rate while recording clips. We'll not be using this feature during regular practice, but I hope it's clear. Record session automation in. ARM tracks is now selected here. You can switch it to all tracks. When this feature is active, automation can be recorded only on ARM tracks in the session view. Otherwise, automation will be recorded on all the clips that are playing in the session view. Okay. Let's go to the next thing that we have here, that is start playback with record. When this feature is turned on, playback will immediately start when record button is pressed from the arrangement window. As you can see here, playback has started. Okay, let's go back to preferences. Warp fade section. Loop/warp short samples is the first thing you will see here. Auto is selected by default, but there are few options in the drop down menu. But first we need to learn what warp means, and it will be covered in the upcoming session. For now, we'll leave it just the way it is. Auto warp long samples. This feature is turned on and it will automatically warp long samples and set the warp markers. Default warp mode. Default warp mode is set to beats. There are few options here as well: beats, tones, texture, repitch and complex. We'll go through this in our upcoming session to understand how each one of this works. Create fades on clip edges. It is turned off for now, but you can turn this on or off according to your preferences. I'm going to keep it off because it can be done manually if required. The next section we have is launch, and the first thing you'll see is default launch mode. It is set to trigger by default. There are several modes here that you can select from. This is where the launch mode is located on Ableton Live. But first we need to learn what each one of this does, and this will be covered in our upcoming sessions. Okay, so let's move ahead with default launch quantization. It is set to global, and global quantization is located here on Ableton Live, and you can select either one of this according to your preferences. I will recommend you to have global selected from the drop down menu. Okay, so the next thing that we have is select on launch. It is turned on. So this will select the clip or the scene that is launched in the session view. As you can see here. Okay, let's go back to preferences. Select next scene on launch. When this feature is turned on, this will automatically select the next scene that is launched. As you can see here, I hope it's clear. Let's go back to the preferences. Start recording on scene launch. If this feature is turned on, it will start recording in armed clips when a scene is launched, as you can see here. We'll also be covering these topics extensively during session view tutorial. Tap tempo. Start playback with tap tempo. Tap is located here on Ableton Live. Let's say you don't know the exact tempo of an instrument or the beat that you have in your mind. You can simply tap on this button and Ableton will calculate the BPM or the tempo according to your tap behavior. As you can see here, the tempo is changing according to my tap behavior. Okay, let's go back to the preferences. The next thing that we have here is MIDI note drawing. In MIDI note drawing, we have draw mode with pitch lock. And as you can see here, this feature is turned on. As you can see here, the notes are now restricted to one single key track. When I press Option key, it allows me freehand melodic drawings without restricting it to a specific key. Okay, that concludes everything. If you have any questions, you can click on the Q&A tab and post your queries.